Alrighty, so in the last video, we looked at changing percentages to fractions. Now, in this video, we are just going to go the other way. So we're going to look at converting fractions to percentages. Now, to some of you, this may be self-explanatory, but I still think it's useful to do a little video just to continually give you a little bit of the intuition towards how we can make these conversions. Now, it often helps, before we even go into this, as I said in the last video, it's helpful to think of a percentage as a type of fraction. Because percentages are their own thing when they're shown as, for example, 62%. But it's important to understand that the way we get percentages is by first having a fraction as some number out of 100. So some fraction of 100. So we looked at some of the easier simplifications in the previous videos. We went the other way, but in this case, going back from fractions to percentages. Oh, sorry. Let's actually write my fraction first. That'd be a good idea. So let's write 62 over 100. That's my fraction. Now, to change this to a percentage would just be 62%. It's this number as a fraction of 100, expressed as a fraction of 100. So this is true for any fraction with a denominator of 100. We can just write it straight out as a percentage here. Now, what happens when we get some trickier examples, some not so obvious examples? Because in this one, our fraction was already in the form we need it to be for a percentage. Now, let's have a look at a couple of examples here. So we have the first example. We want to convert 7/10 into a percentage. Now, we notice here, the denominator isn't 100. So it's not in a percentage. It's not in a form that will help us write it flat out as a percentage. But can we make this denominator into 100? Now, some of you may have picked up on the fact that, well, if we just multiply this by 10, then that'll give me 100 on the denominator. And because we're doing this to the bottom, we'll also do it to the top here because we need an equivalent fraction. We don't actually want to change the value of this. We just want to express it differently. We want to express this as a fraction, just scaled up by a factor of 10. So here we will get 70 over 100. Now, this right here is in a better form. This is in a form we like to work with because, check it out, we now have a denominator of 100. So therefore, we can say that this just equals to 70%. Now let's try another one. We're going to do a few examples here, and you should get the gist of it hopefully by the end. So our second example, we are going to look at converting 4/5 into a percentage. Now, once again, we don't like this. We don't like this 5 because we want 100 on our denominator. But similarly to before, we can find a number that multiplies to 5 to give us 100. And that number will be 20. And you can verify this using your calculator. But 5 lots of 20 give us 100. And then we also need to do that to our numerator. And we will get left with 80 over 100. Now we have a fraction. We have some fraction with a denominator of 100. And that is the definition of a percentage. So we can just copy straight off here and say, well, this is 80%. Now let's look at one more example because we noticed it was a little bit tricky to, well, sorry, we realized it wasn't too tricky to get this one to 100 or this one to 100 because these numbers are nice factors of 100. What if we have a denominator that isn't a factor of 100, which may pose some problems for us? So let's look at, say, 3/8. Now, for some of you, maybe it won't be super clear just yet, but have a think if there's a way we can get this 8 to 100. Now, my first instinct would be, well, I need something in terms of 100. So why don't I multiply my 8 by 100? Because that'll give me 800 on the denominator. And from there, we can bring that back to 100 in hopefully not too much of a painstaking way. So we're going to do this to both numerator and denominator. And we'll end up with 300. Oh, got a bit ahead of myself here. We'll have 300 on top of 800. Now, from here we can see, well, I can get this denominator to 100 just by dividing by 8, because 8 lots of 100 give us 800. So to get back to 100, we can divide by 8 here. And whatever we do to the denominator, we will have to do to the numerator because we want an equivalent fraction here. So what are we going to get here? Well, we're going to get 300 divided by 8 on top of 100. And whatever number is on this numerator will be my percentage. So you can feel free to put this into a calculator, or you can do the division on your own, but we will get, we will get 37.5 over 100. Now we are in a friendly, where we're looking at a friendly fraction. We're looking at one which will tell us immediately what the percentage is. And here we'll get 37.5%. So we notice that no matter what number we have on the denominator, well, we can get this to 100 by, well, first making it into, by scaling it up by a factor of 100 and then just dividing. And this idea will become a lot clearer once we look at converting decimals to percentages, because that is going to be a bit of a trickier thing conceptually, but we'll notice a lot of these ideas popping up, and hopefully that will tie together this topic for a lot of you. But when we change from fraction to a percentage, we essentially first just want to make the fraction some fraction over a denominator of 100, because that'll immediately give us just the definition of our percentage. So we can write that straight off from the numerator here. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.